There's a small hidden door in the building where I work that nobody wants to be near, and I understand why. About a year ago, I was working as an evening security guard at a small office complex on the edge of an industrial area. The job was mostly routine: check doors, watch cameras, log anything unusual. Most nights, the loudest sound in the building was the vending machine humming in the break room. Around 9:30 p.m., a cleaning crew member told me she'd heard banging from the first-floor stairwell. Not loud, just steady, like someone was knocking, slow. I assumed it was pipes or the old radiator system. Still, I went to check. The closer I walked to the stairwell, the louder the knocking became, but the second I opened the door, the knocking stopped instantly. At first I froze. I should just have left, but instead, I stepped further inside. Halfway down the stairs, I noticed something I'd never seen before: a small wooden door beneath the landing, about waist high, the kind used for storage or electrical access. I'd worked there 8 months. I was certain it hadn't been there before. There was no handle, just peeling paint and a thin crack along the frame. I told myself I'd simply never paid attention to it. Old buildings are full of hidden compartments. I managed to open the small wooden door. The room seemed large, but I couldn't really see anything. Only a dusty floor and some strange scratch marks on the door. From the inside, I closed the door quickly and went back upstairs and checked the building plans in the security office. No door was marked beneath the stairs, just solid concrete foundation. When I returned, the banging had started again. 3 slow knocks. Pause. 3 more. I don't know why, but I knocked back. The sound stopped immediately. For a few seconds, everything was completely silent. Even the fluorescent buzzing seemed to disappear. Then something knocked in return. Not on the wood, on the other side of the stairwell wall, right beside my head. I stepped back so fast, I nearly fell down the stairs. My radio crackled with static, even though no one was speaking. I left the stairwell and locked the door behind me. I didn't tell anyone. It sounded ridiculous, even in my own head. The next night, the cleaning crew refused to go near that stairwell. They said someone had been whispering from inside the wall. Management blamed stress and told me to keep working as normal. A week later, during a late patrol, I found the stairwell door already open. The small wooden door beneath the stairs was open too. Inside was darkness deeper than the space should allow. My flashlight beam faded before reaching the back. On the concrete floor inside, carved in uneven lines, were tally marks. Dozens, maybe hundreds. And beneath them, a sentence: "Thank you for answering." Something shifted in the darkness. Slow, careful, like someone crawling closer without wanting to be heard. I slammed the wooden door shut and ran. I didn't finish my shift. I didn't go back the next day. 2 weeks later, I drove past the building out of curiosity. The entire first-floor stairwell had been sealed with fresh concrete. No explanation, no incident report. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm in a quiet place, I still hear 3 slow knocks, waiting to see if I'll answer again. The hotel where I worked had a hallway that didn't keep the same length after midnight. It was a small roadside place, 3 floors, faded carpets, the kind of hotel travelers chose only when they had no reason to stay anywhere longer than a night. I worked the late shift at the front desk, where time moved slowly and the silence often felt thicker than the walls. One Tuesday at 2:15 a.m., the phone rang. The caller was a guest from the second floor. His voice sounded distant, strained in a way that made it hard to tell whether he was frightened or simply confused. He said he couldn't find the elevator. He said he had been walking for a long time, and the hallway wouldn't end. I assumed he was drunk. That was the simplest explanation. So I told him to stay where he was and went upstairs to get him. When I stepped out of the stairwell, the corridor looked perfectly normal. The same dull landscape paintings hung between the doors. The same ice machine hummed softly near room 214. Nothing felt unusual, at least. Not at first. Then, I started walking. Something was wrong with the distance. The ceiling lights seemed spaced too far apart, as if the hallway had been stretched without anyone noticing. My footsteps echoed longer than they should have, the sound trailing behind me like it belonged to someone else. I passed room 218, then 220. The hallway continued. There should have been a wall after room 222. Instead, the corridor extended forward into more carpet, more doors, more silence. Every door was closed. None of them had numbers. I stopped and listened, expecting movement, breathing, anything that proved another person was nearby. There was nothing. Halfway down that impossible stretch, I saw a single door standing slightly open. Warm yellow light spilled into the darkness of the hall. I called out to the guest. No answer. For a moment, I convinced myself it was just an old storage room forced open by mistake, something ordinary, something explainable. Then I pushed the door wider and stepped inside. The room did not belong to the present. The wallpaper carried a faded pattern I had only seen in photographs. The furniture was decades out of date. A bulky television flickered with silent static, casting weak pulses of gray light across the walls. On the bedside table lay a guest registry card. The printed date read 1979. A quiet certainty settled over me, deep, instinctive, impossible to ignore. I should not have been there. It felt less like entering a room and more like stepping into a memory that had been sealed away. Then the bathroom light switched on by itself. In the mirror, a dark figure stood behind me. I couldn't move. I couldn't even turn. I only stared, locked in the reflection, as seconds stretched into something shapeless and endless. And then the light went out. Darkness swallowed the room. I ran. I don't remember crossing the floor or reaching the door. I only remember the hallway air hitting my face and the sound of my own footsteps breaking apart the silence as I fled toward the stairwell. Only when I reached the safety of the stairs did I dare to look back. The long corridor was gone. Room 222 stood at the end of the hall exactly where it should be. Beyond it, a solid wall. No extra doors, no yellow light, nothing but the ordinary second floor. Downstairs, the guest who had called was asleep in a lobby chair. I woke him gently. He looked pale, shaken in a way he couldn't explain. He said he remembered walking a hallway that wouldn't end, but nothing after that. Management told me I was overtired. That night, shifts could do strange things to the mind. But I know what I saw, and I know that whatever was in that room is still there somewhere beyond the walls we can see. A month later, renovation workers opened a sealed section of the second floor. Behind the drywall, they discovered an old hallway abandoned after a fire in the late 1970s. There were no doors anymore, only empty frames leading into blackened space, except for one room at the far end. Inside, lying on the floor, was a single guest registry card, signed with my name, dated the night of my shift, and beneath the signature, written in uneven ink, a message waited. You can't outrun me. Most houses feel empty when no one lives in them. This one felt watched. In real estate photography, you learn to notice the details most people ignore. Light in corners, reflections in windows, shadows that make a room feel larger or smaller than it really is. You also learn one simple rule. If something appears in a photo that wasn't there when you took it, you delete the image and you don't ask questions. I broke that rule on a gray Tuesday in October. The property sat at the end of a quiet and wealthy street, the kind where every lawn looked carefully maintained and every window stayed politely closed. Except this one. The grass had grown too long, paint peeled from the shutters, and in the middle of the front yard stood an old stone fountain, dry and cracked, filled with dead leaves the color of rust. The realtor met me at the curb, but didn't step onto the property. She only told me to take the photos and send them that evening, then added, after a pause, not to stay longer than necessary. She left before I could ask why. Inside, the house smelled sealed, like dust, old fabric, and something faintly sweet underneath. Not rot, something older. I worked methodically through the rooms. The living room, the kitchen, the dining room, each photo clean, empty, ordinary. Then I stepped into the back sitting room, where tall windows faced the yard and the broken fountain beyond. I framed the shot, checked the exposure, and pressed the shutter. Nothing unusual, at least not yet. I always review photos in my car before leaving. Habit, control. The first dozen looked perfect. Then I reached the sitting room image and felt my stomach tighten. Standing outside the window, near the fountain, was a figure, pale, still, watching the camera. I was certain the yard had been empty. I zoomed in. It looked like a young girl in a faded dress, her skin almost gray, her eyes fixed directly on me. I told myself it was a reflection, a trick of glass, anything explainable, so I went back inside. The house was silent, too silent. I walked through every room again. No one. When I returned to the sitting room, the yard beyond the window was empty, just the fountain and the leaves. I took another photo. Back in the car, I opened the new image. This time there were 3 figures, all pale, all motionless, all staring straight into the lens, and all of them were turned slightly toward the fountain, as if something there mattered more than the house behind them. A cold pressure settled in my chest, because I knew with the quiet certainty you feel in nightmares that the yard had been empty both times. That night I searched the address online and found an article from 23 years earlier. A family of 4 had disappeared, a mother and 2 daughters gone without a trace. The father had been arrested and charged with murder, but no bodies were ever found, and no evidence strong enough to hold him. He was released, and the case faded. I opened the photos again and zoomed closer. In every image where the figures appeared, their eyes weren't just on the camera. They aligned perfectly toward the same point in the yard, the fountain's basin. My mouth went dry. I told myself to send the normal photos, delete the rest, and forget everything. Instead, sometime after midnight, I found myself driving back. Curiosity is stronger than fear right up until the moment it isn't. The neighborhood was silent, no porch lights, no cars. The house looked darker than before, its windows like blank eyes. I took a shovel from my trunk and walked to the fountain. Dead leaves crunched softly under my shoes. The stone felt colder than the night air. I climbed into the basin and started digging. At first there was only dirt, roots, stones. Then came a soft, hollow sound. Metal striking something that wasn't soil. My breathing grew faster as I cleared the earth with shaking hands. Fabric appeared, small, faded. A child's dress. Beneath it lay a pale arm. skin drained of color, perfectly preserved by the cold ground. A little girl rested there as if asleep, eyes closed, scars on her face. And then... behind me, a tall man stood, pale skin, but his eyes were not human, only animalistic and wild. I wanted to scream, but I didn't make it. It was already too late.